Welcome back, everyone. Your weekly guide to the world's most compelling real estate opportunities. I'm Stephanie Gillison.
And I'm Charles Bornheimer, and I have a quick question for you, Stephanie, before we get going. Can you name a market where foreign buyers are already 60 to 70% of property sales, a place where prices are up double digits this year, somewhere that has a brand new international airport, and where you can still get a solid two-bedroom condo in the 300K range? What place are we talking about?
Oh, Charles, people ask me this all the time, where the smart money is going, and it's going in Mexico right now. My answer has not changed. It's the Yucatan Peninsula. It's the Caribbean coast corridor specifically, okay? So in that, you have Tulum, Playa del Carmen, Cancun, and the colonial city of Mérida, which is just inland a tad. Okay, so international buyers already make up 60 to 70% of that entire market. Prices are up double digits. A brand new international airport just opened for this very reason. And you can still buy a well-built two-bedroom condo for under 300,000 US dollars. That combination does not exist in many places on earth, as if you've been following us and watching our webinars, you know that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's four markets. It's one region. There's Tulum, there's Playa del Carmen, Cancun, and as you said, Riviera Maya. And inland there's Merida. Let's dive into the real numbers. Let's talk about the ownership rules and the residency picture. By the way, everything we talk about you can find on Airdomo. So don't forget to hop over there for whatever piques your interest. Let's get rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. So before Charles gives you the numbers, here's the thing to understand about this region. Very few markets in the world offer even two or three of the advantages that we're going to talk through today. The Yucatan offers all of them at one time, okay, stacked on top of each other. That stack is the entire story.
Yeah, let's start with the foundation. Quintana Roo pulls more than 20 million visitors a year. Obviously, it's a huge tourism destination. The demand is already there. It's already at a huge scale, on a global scale. New Tulum Airport, that 2 hour drive from Cancun, which I don't know if you've ever done it. At 2 hours,
Oh,
if 2 hours, if you're got everything going for you, right? It could be a little bit different from that if it isn't, and that's a huge factor. So you can get to a lot more destinations a lot more readily. The Tulum Airport has a lot of direct flights in from the States. Third, proximity, 2 or 3 hours by air for U.S. and Canada buyers, and it's close enough that you can do a long weekend without burning all that travel time. And price, as you say, you still can get really great value in the $250,000 to $500,000 range. Tons of opportunity there. And there's another point. There's one that I think you've mentioned, Stephanie, that people get wrong a lot. And why don't you dive into that?
absolutely. And here's what most buyers get wrong about the Yucatan. They treat it like it's one market. And look, it is four markets, okay? Tulum is that barefoot luxury where you put your feet in the sand, but you're also surrounded by jungle, okay? Playa del Carmen is the walkable beach town living, okay? That's where you're gonna throw your feet up in a lounge chair and drink a beer, okay? Cancun and the Riviera Maya, that's the golf and the marina resort communities with professional management already in place. When you want to get a little frou-frou and you want to get pampered, that's where you're going to go. And then Merida is a colonial city that does not even touch the coast, but it's close to the coast, okay? So that one region, four completely different buyers, four completely different markets, okay? So the people who understand that distinction, they're the ones that are really buying well. And that's the one thing, Charles. My son, when he was in college, he spent an entire semester in Merida. And he said it was one of the most beautiful, cleanest places on earth. And that was one of the most unique, times that he was there, and very secure, very safe, very clean as well. But let's talk
Yeah.
about Tulum. Tulum is that name that everybody knows. You've got the Mayan ruins over the turquoise water of the cenotes. You've got wellness retreats and design scenes that genuinely are unlike anywhere else on this peninsula. It is also, and I want to be straight about this, the most volatile of the four markets that we're covering today. And the reason why I want to say it's volatile, is they've had a bit of overbuilding over the course of the last few years. So you're definitely going to get a condo there for under $250,000.
Right, and it's as you said, it's an extraordinary location. The care to the environment, the things that you can do, the access is all remarkable. But it does present some interesting perspectives when you talk about the overbuilding and the inventory, which is changing almost day to day. It feels like. But here are the numbers as they stand today. Average residential is probably around 300, maybe a little bit north of that. 300K, one bedrooms in the 170 to 220 range, two beds in that $250,000 to say 400, and then 400 up to like maybe 650 for three and up. The beachfront, if you want to be in the beachfront, you're probably going to start at about $1 million USD, and they can get up past 3 million, depending on what you're going for. There has been a 20%. There was a 20% a year boost from 2020 to 23. But then, as you said, there got to be a little bit of a glut, and then there was a sort of a correction, a 10 to 20% correction running up through 2025. Foreign buyers are about 60% of the market. The resale is very liquid, but that correction is kind of where your take comes in stuff.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be straight with you about Tulum because a lot of people will not be, okay? It ran up hard, and then the condo segment corrected 10 to 20% as too much supply came online. Here's the part that nobody frames correctly. That correction created some of the most interesting entry points I've ever seen in Tulum in years. The catch is that you have to buy in an established zone with a real track record, not pre-construction, okay? Because the pre-construction project with no delivery history may never come. Okay, buy the correction, not the brochure. So what I mean by that is buy what is already sitting there with the price that has come down. Okay, and then don't look to flip it right away. This is where you have an entry point and a real opportunity to have that beach or that ocean or near the ocean living, that lifestyle, maybe that retirement or the place that you and your family can go to without having to spend millions of dollars to get there. Right. 15 minutes down the coast, Playa del Carmen tells a calmer story. It's walkable, it's established. Quinta Avenida gives you a real downtown, and the beach clubs rival anything in the region. It is the steadier cousin in this entire family.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely more kind of a stable expectation that you can have going in there. Average in Playa is just shy of $4,000 a square meter. Beachfront is Cocoa Beach is going to get up to about 6,000. Inland, the Airdomo zone runs like a fraction of that. So as you were talking about, if you're not set on being on the coast, you can find some terrific value. Beachfront to 10 minutes inland could be about a 4 times different discount. So again, if you can live without that beach, you've got some extraordinary opportunities there. And again, foreign buyers over 70% over there. Prices up 12% this year. And there's one big surprise, Stephanie. What's that?
Oh, I love this because here's a number that owning property in Mexico that stops everybody in their tracks, and they always say, yeah, right. It's true, you all. The annual property tax, what they call predial on a standard apartment in Playa del Carmen, typically runs under $700 a year. That's not a month, it's a year. So if you own coastal property anywhere in the United States or Canada, you already know that number simply does not exist where you are. So that single line item alone changes your entire math on owning a second home. $700 a year or less. Amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look over at Cancun and the Riviera Maya side. Cancun, of course, is the one that most North Americans kind of associate with. I think with the Yucatán, that's the big one that jumps out. It's probably the most institutionally mature market that we're talking about. There's the branded residences. There's tons of golf. There's marinas. Professional management everywhere. So if you want that hands-free, easy care plan, that's all very available. Tons of direct flights, tons of rental history, very well established. And there's a lot of cool, like kind of quieter spots that fit in this too, that are not as a little more off the beaten path. When I was there just a couple months ago. We went through Aquamal, which has a beautiful turtle bay where we snorkeled, and these are just sort of off the road, but you discover that there's opportunities that are outside of the bigger centers and away from the branded residences that exist as well. So, but for Stephanie, for you, for like the easiest entry, where does Cancun land?
Well, for the buyer who wants the turnkey rental income with professional management already in place and almost no learning curve, Cancun and then the immediate Riviera Maya, they're the most straightforward entry point in the entire region. There's nothing wrong with buying the easy version of any market, right? Sometimes the boring, proven, professionally managed option is exactly the right call. You can still go there and enjoy it, but you know that what your goal is to have that added income coming in, then that's going to be the right choice for you. And now the one I think deserves far more attention than it ever gets, right, Charles?
Yeah, yeah. This is kind of the hidden gem, and it's Mérida, the colonial capital. So it's actually ranked one of the safest cities in Mexico. It's inland, so it's outside of the restricted zone. Median home, call it $250,000. The maybe up to 300. In the centro, there are these really stunning, beautiful restored colonials that you can get probably in the 400 to 500K range. We've seen Mérida go up 20 to 30% in the last couple of years. And there's a real case here, Stephanie.
Absolutely. And, like I said earlier, my son, his junior year of college, spent an entire semester going to the University of Mérida. And he said it was so super safe. That was one of my fear. I hear Mexico and he's going off and I'm like, wow. But he said, Mom, it was safer than where we live. And so if you want the market almost nobody outside of Mexico is talking about yet, it is Mérida. It is the colonial capital of the Yucatán, consistently ranked among the safest cities in the whole entire country of Mexico. And it sits far enough inland that it falls completely outside of the coastal ownership restrictions. So restored colonial homes in the historical center, soaring ceilings, interior courtyards, they've appreciated about 20 to 35% in just the last 2 to 3 years alone. So as buyers discover what locals have known for a long time, that's what has caused for the price to go up. So this is the one I would tell a friend to look at before everyone else does, okay? And one honest caveat I give every client on Mérida: renovation costs on a colonial property can honestly rival the purchase price. So you budget for that upfront instead of getting surprised. So for the buyer who wants authentic Mexico, walkable culture, and a market that international capital has not fully found yet, Mérida is that quiet one, and it's the most interesting stories in the country. And it's close to all of those other areas that we mentioned, so that you can get to the coast, you can enjoy the beach, you can get to those places without living right there on it.
Yeah, I guess that just depends on the buyer type. But if you want the easy life of the fully managed, it's right there for you. But if you want to grab a colonial restoration and take on that project, that's an exciting path too. But let's talk for a second about the overall structure. The most misunderstood part about buying in Mexico. It is important that people know that foreigners can't hold direct title in the restricted zone. So 50 kilometers off any coast, 100 off of a border. And that covers Tulum, Playa, and Cancun. So, Stephanie, why don't you take us through that? It kind of spooks people a little bit.
So here's what we talk about with the coastline, okay? Foreigners cannot hold direct title within 50 kilometers of the coastline. So that covers Tulum, Playa del Carmen, and Cancun. But the solution is a bank trust called a fiducia missio, okay? So a Mexican bank holds the legal title on your behalf, and you hold every beneficial right there, okay? So you can sell it, you can rent it, you can renovate it, and you can leave it to your children. It has been used safely by foreign buyers for decades. And in Mérida, because it's inland, you do not need that at all. You actually will be on title.
Right, and to say that it's not hard to set up. It only costs probably a couple grand to set it up, and maybe 500 to 1,000 to maintain it. per year after that. Now let's talk about residency. There's also a lot of misinformation here. Let's clear up some of those ones then.
Oh, absolutely. Because look, the big myth about buying in Mexico, look, owning property here does not by itself get you residency visa. That is a very common assumption, and under current immigration law, it is not true. The temporary resident visa runs through your finances instead. So roughly $4,300 a month in verified income on or around $74,000 in savings. So buy the property for the property, right? If residency is part of your plan, treat it as its own separate process with a qualified immigration attorney. Do not let anyone sell you a house as a shortcut to visa, okay? So here's the thing. You can own property there with a trust. You do not have to become a resident to own property in Mexico. But if your goal is to have a residency visa, then you have to have $74,000 verified in savings to get to having that residency visa. Not hard though.
No, but it's I think as you said, it also speaks to the importance of getting a great team, a great some legal and so forth, and as of course Airdomo is there to help you with some great partners in the region. So don't hesitate to get in touch if that's a question that's on your mind. But jumping over to the tax picture. Overall, it stays low. Freddie, as you mentioned, is the fraction of the U.S. or Canadian bill. On a sale, foreign sellers can get a 25% withholding on the gross. But Stephanie, on that sale number, you've got some specific advice about that.
Well, here's the deal. Like you just mentioned, you've got to work with a great team, okay? So when you buy in Mexico, you've got to work with a good notary and document your cost basis and every improvement from day one, okay? And so that's one of the structures we're going to take you through, because your cost basis and any improvement you make on that property is going to be very important, because when you eventually sell, foreign sellers face a withholding of up to 25% of the gross sales price, okay? Now, proper documentation from the start is what lets you be taxed on your actual gain. So nobody thinks about the exit on the day they buy. And that's exactly why this one matters so much. And that's exactly why you need to rely on Airdomo, so that we can help you set this up from the start the correct way.
Right, so your team's... Exactly, and your team's most likely going to have an attorney and a notario before you sign, and the notario, is worth noting, does a lot more than a U.S. closing attorney. So it's worth the money. It's worth getting the right people on your team before you step into this. But let me kind of be a skeptic for a second, because we did talk about some of the overbuilding, some of the corrections, and so forth. Every hot market can get overheated. As we talked about, Tulum, we think already corrected. Prices are getting back up again. Stephanie, what would you have buyers know about the Yucatan and where it is in that kind of trajectory?
Well, here's the deal. Quintana Roo pulls more than 20 million visitors a year, and that tourism base is the floor under rental demand, okay? A brand new international airport just reshaped the entire map, okay? As you said before, to go to these places, you were flying in, getting on a bus, driving 2.5 miles on bumpy roads to get to these places, and they were still doing very well. They put in this brand new international airport, and now we're 15 minutes to most of these places we're talking about. So entry points are still under 6 figures, and there's a straightforward bank regulated path to foreign ownership. You'll not find many markets anywhere on this planet with all 4 of those at once. So this story is not finished yet. This has not peaked at all. We've got plenty of room here. And here's the thing that every buyer has to internalize, okay? The label on the map is not the trade. Tulum in 2026 is not the same investment it was in 2021. In Playa del Carmen, the beachfront and the Alajadal zone, a 10-minute drive inland, are functionally 2 different markets with prices that can differ by 4 times. If you buy in Mexico generically, you will get a generic result. The buyers who win here are the ones that are doing their homework. They're the ones that are meeting with us and they're studying a specific submarket and not the entire country as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth saying that if you want to check out the breadth of what's available there, the Tulum villas and the established zone condos where you can get that built-in management versus the the beachfront and the island, the Cancun and Riviera Maya turnkey rentals, as we said, easy to step in, a great sort of set it and forget it opportunity, and then the more unique and potentially higher upside Mérida colonial homes. And if you want to get the right team on your side, again, pop into Airdomo to get the whole project off on the right foot.
Absolutely. If the Yucatan has been on your radar and after everything we've just walked through, it probably should be, right? Because here's the smartest first move. Talk to someone who knows these 4 submarkets individually before you fall in love with a single listing photo, okay? We have got, a fiduciary-ready coastal purchase and a direct title closing in Mérida are completely different transactions. Knowing which one applies to you before you get emotional about a property is what separates a good buy from an expensive lesson. And look, the smartest buyers I've ever worked with in all share one habit. They move before the trade is obvious to everyone else, okay? A few years ago, that was Portugal and Panama. Right now, it is a stretch of Mexican coastline and the colonial city 40 minutes inland from it. The gap between the people who see it early and the people who see it once, it is everywhere, is exactly where the opportunity always lives. The only real question is, which side of that gap do you want to be on? So again, thank you for joining us on Airdomo Global. Head to airdomo.com to browse Yucatan listings, connect with our concierge team, and start your conversation. We will once again see you next week with another market, another opportunity. And until then, find your place in the world.
Check it on Airdomo first. See you next time.
Bye, y'all.